Okay, so this video is going to be about the regions of Texas according to me. Now I know I saw one of the videos where I had 2 dislikes, and that's okay. These are my opinion. I should probably say that up front, is that these are my opinion. These are not the opinions of anybody with any actual relevance on the state of Texas. But I think that it's interesting nonetheless. So I'm going to cover these regions. I'm going to cover this not so much in north and south, but in just kind of, economical and what the main kind of the cultural value is, and also the economic value. So yeah, that's what I'm going to try to do with that. So with further ado, I'm going to go ahead and cover the map that I'm going to be using, which I'm sure people are going to dispute the hell out of this, and that's okay. But this is the map that I'm going to show, so let's go ahead and show that and go from there. So this is an extremely autistic map, but this is going to be the map I'm going to use, which it's very loose, but nonetheless I think it serves a value. So we're going to go over these little bit by little bit. I'm not going to cover them too deeply, but I'm going to kind of hit the highlights and go from there. So let's go ahead and cover these region by region, shall we? Okay, I'm going to start at the top and then kind of go clockwise. I think that's the way that I'm going to do this. So we're going to start with the Panhandle, as it's known, of Texas, which primarily has Amarillo and Lubbock. These are fairly quiet places in general. These are they have a lot of infrastructure, but in general they don't have a lot of value necessarily. There is obviously, a lot of cattle ranches and everything else there, but in general, it's kind of a small place. And so, obviously you do have the bigger cities like, Amarillo and Lubbock there, but in general, they aren't big powerhouses. This is not what makes the economy of Texas run as much as you may think. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and cover the area collectively known kind of as Texoma, or a combination of Texas and Oklahoma. This is an area that, has some cotton and is much more agricultural. You can also say the same thing, obviously, for the Panhandle. These are kind of the more rural, sometimes dry, sometimes not areas, but mostly this is where a lot of people will see Texas for the first time, is through these areas. And in general, these are kind of the more old school places that you'll get into. And I think that I can kind of sum up somewhat, and I will cover this a little bit more. This is honestly where I live, so I have to be careful about this, but I will go ahead and show this King of the Hill clip, which kind of explains some of the some of the local issues here. So let's go ahead and show that clip right quick.
Excuse me, we're looking for the assistant manager.
Jeff, there's some guys out here. Damn it all, Jeff Jr. I wasn't finished with my nap.
Hello there, I'm Hank Hill, and I sell propane and propane accessories too, in Arlen, Texas. I gotta say, I sure envy you. After a hard day's work at a job you love, you get to take your son to see the Cowboys.
I am so sick of you South Texas pig jockeys coming in here, waking me up to tell me, how about them Cowboys? Arlen stinks and Wichita Falls rules. And you know why? 'Cause in 5 minutes I can be inside the great state of Oklahoma. Go Sooners!
What?
Go Sooners! Go Sooners!
Cut it out! Stop it! Stop it now! Stampede! Go you Dallas Cowboys! Go! Stampede! Go you Dallas Cowboys! Go!
That's a great clip. But yeah. So I'm going to show this. This is some background from a trucker from Vernon, I guess. I saw this video here. I thought it'd be good. What I was going to show, though, is kind of just how empty this is. This is kind of known for King Cotton. This is kind of a big place where cotton is. And another thing that Vernon, Texas is known for is having the Texas State Hospital. which is kind of one of those things where it's like, oh boy. But yeah, that's kind of, two of the biggest things. It's kind of an agricultural place. And like I said, this was filmed just last month. So yeah, it kind of shows you just how bare it is out there in general. But yeah, nonetheless, it's an interesting place. And the thing is, I want to show a map here just to kind of get the joke of that King of the Hill thing. Let me go ahead and show y'all. Okay, so just to show, that's Wichita Falls right there. And barely within 10 minutes, you can be in Oklahoma. And it does take a little bit of ways to get to the casinos, which kind of is well known for this area. And of course, go Sooners apparently. But yeah, so yeah, I just want to show this a little bit more. So it's kind of, that's kind of how Texoma is that, if there's something that basically they're not selling in Texas, like Sierra Mist or certain like bottles of water or something like that, you can just, take a trip to Lawton, Oklahoma. And you can either take the toll road, which is about, I think, $3, or you can go the back way and not have to pay for a toll. So, I mean, there's that. Like I say, in general, this area is still fairly agricultural. There are other things as well, including Shepherd Air Force Base as well. But in general, speaking economically, not so much. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to kind of the central Texas area. Wichita Falls, through the Midwestern State University, they hosted the Dallas Cowboys from 1998 to 2002. Just a little side note there. Now let's go on to the Autismo map. Alright, let's do that. Okay, we're going to go back to the autism map here. And this is kind of lazy of me and also just kind of dumb, really. But I'm going to go ahead and combine the area between, Waco and Texarkana, which is kind of, on the very edge there of, on the very eastern edge of Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and combine that. This is more of the area where Texas really has its economy. Okay, I'm just going to use some other footage here just to kind of give you the scale here. I think that this is Dallas proper. If you've ever been down to Dallas, Fort Worth, that whole area, I mean, it's just kind of seen as a metropolitan area because have these huge swaths of land. Urbanization is huge. This is like, it's like going from, the 19th century all the way up to the, 21st century, from going to small towns like Vernon. And now you're going into, the belly of the beast in a lot of ways in a place like Dallas. But this is where people are moving to. And this is where the jobs are. Now, relatively speaking, it is still in Texas. So in general, compared to other big cities, DFW, and including places like, Louisville and all those, I couldn't even think of all the hundreds of suburbs that in between Dallas and Fort Worth, like, for example, Grapevine. These are just huge places that, if you haven't lived there, you're just like, holy moly. And if you've lived in small towns like Vernon, as we saw, you are bewildered, to say the least, by how urbanized it is and how wild it gets. But yeah, this is where the economy is. Same thing with Austin and Houston. These are where the jobs are at. If you want to get into electronics like Texas Instruments, you're going to be, living in a suburb, more than likely, so that you can get to these jobs. So, this is a huge area here. Like I said, there is agriculture as well. There are, farms here, just like anywhere else in Texas, but in general, this is urban central, a lot of companies are starting to move here and moving to this area specifically. And, the sprawl is going to be huge. You have places like, Paris, Texas, or, okay, daggum, I can't think of the name of the city, but there is a lot of stuff here. And I think it's very important to cover here that this is kind of the center of all those things. If you're going to put it in terms of protests, if you're going to have the BLM protests, that occurred over this summer, if you thought about it. That occurred down in Houston, I believe, and also in Austin. So this is, like I say, this is kind of the, in terms of the economic value of Texas, this is where it is, basically. Alright, so this is our last showing. We're going to just keep it at 4 sections instead of 6. Okay, it was just kind of autistic to break it up this way. So our last part is going to be West Texas, kind of the, Midland, Odessa, El Paso area. This is where a lot of the oil is. This is kind of the area. Midlothian is also here. You also have, more specifically, the Permian Basin. So a lot of the oil folks go out here. And you also have, this is where a lot of the migration is. You're going to get into places like Juarez as well. And El Paso, obviously a very big place for migrants to do work in the United States and send it back home. So this is a big area. This is also a big place of the drug trade. So in general, this is kind of the second bigger area for jobs in Texas. And so I think that's an important aspect to mention in general. But a lot of it is very dry and desert-like in general. This is where Pecos used to be a place where the Army Air Corps base was as well. So, like I say, I think that is the end of our little video here. We're pushing on 12 minutes. This is something I just threw together quickly. As you can tell, this isn't the best video, but I think that for those who have never been to Texas, this kind of gives a general outline of what goes on and where things are at and everything, and a little bit of humor in there, I think, but overall, kind of gives you a broad sense of Texas. And I think that, if you ever want to figure out how things are, you gotta understand where the jobs are at and what people are thinking. And I think that this is a building block to something better. And I hope y'all see it that way. I hope you'll enjoy. See you later. Like, comment, and subscribe. Just as, all the YouTubers say, enjoy and goodbye.